And my topic is the doping accusations against Lance Armstrong. How many of you know who Lance Armstrong is? Okay, for those of you who don't, he's a professional road racing cyclist, and he's famous for winning the Tour de France 7 times in a row. He's also a marathon, triathlon, and Ironman racer. For those who don't know what the Tour de France is, it's an annual multi-stage bike race held in France. It's been held annually since 1903, and it's 21 days of racing with 2 days of resting and like an average of 2,000 miles. In 2009, he came back and came in 3rd place, but his consecutive wins were from 1999 to 2005. Throughout his whole career of cycling, he's been accused of doping. And doping is the use of drugs to enhance your performance as an athlete, and it's frowned upon by pretty much everyone. So my claim is that Lance Armstrong is innocent of doping. My 3 main points are that Lance Armstrong has passed every single drug test he's been through. The second is that he's maintained a constant spark of athleticism with no sudden change in ability. And my third is that there's no direct evidence that can declare him guilty of this accusation. The USADA, which is the U.S. Anti-Doping Association, drug tested him ever since he started cycling. He has to provide them of his location year-round, and they can go to like whichever house he's at and test him. They went to his house in New York City, Austin, and Spain, where he came up negative for every test. His attorneys are calling it a witch hunt because it's based on a he said, she said accusations with absolutely no proof. And Armstrong quotes, "The bottom line is I played by the rules put in place by the USADA. The idea that athletes today can be convicted without positive A and B samples perverts the system." Lance Armstrong has been a professional athlete for 20 years, and he turned professional in cycling at 21 when he won the World Championship in 1993. He was declared a competitive triathlon at age 15. He's had no sudden improvement in ability. He didn't all of a sudden become amazing and just win the race out of nowhere. He's run 7 times in a row. He's had no physical change, and according to doctors quoted in the Bleecker report, there's absolutely no indicator of Lance Armstrong showing signs of doping. My second piece of evidence is that proof just isn't there. Failing a drug test is one thing. You have doctors and you have the test to back it up. But people just saying that they've seen him do it and like they did it with him, it's just not enough. It doesn't fit together. According to Betsy Andre, which is the wife of cyclist Frankie Andre, 10 years ago she claimed she was in the hospital room 3 days after his brain surgery, and that he said he admitted to using cortisone, EPA growth hormone, steroids, and testosterone. Lance denies ever saying that, and Dr. Nichols, who was in the room at the time, says he never recalls anything of the sort, and that if that was to have been said, that he would have had to record it legally from a cancer patient. When further questioned, Andrea was asked, were they wearing lab coats with doctors male and female, did they have clipboards, and she couldn't remember any of it. ESPN News also questioned Lance Armstrong about his alleged accusation from Emma O'Reilly, which was his personal masseuse, and she said that she traveled from Brain to Spance to pick up pills and bring them back to Lance, and she had a written diary proving it, but according to Time magazine, it was later determined that her diary was recreated 3 years after the actual incident, which destroyed all her credibility. And it was also later determined by Time magazine that the people who recreated it were paid for their scandalous inputs and accusations. Lance has won every case that has gone to trial so far, even though 11 of his teammates testified against him, 6 of them which were given 6-month suspensions for their own doping accusations. And according to USA Today, the USADA made deals with these teammates that if they testified against them, their punishment wouldn't be as cruel. According to LA Times, Lance Armstrong quotes that there comes a point in every man's life when he has to say enough is enough. For me, that time is now. Due to the fact that he stopped fighting, the USADA has determined him guilty, which is a questionable act among many. Lance may lose his titles from the Tour de France, but never his fans. And bringing it all together, he's passed every drug test, there's no direct proof, he's maintained a constant spark in his athleticism with no drastic improvement. So I conclude that Lance Armstrong is innocent of the doping accusations against him.
All right, well, we know the subject. We get your point of view. You've got a clear statement of your position. The secondary claims are pretty clearly laid out. I thought on the first point you signposted it well in the start of the speech. The second and the third points, I think you kind of dove into them, and I was listening, so I knew where we were at that point, but I think it could be more clearly identified and transitioned to as you get to those points. When you start getting into the particulars on each of these points, the first point, there's a lot of information, factual data about the tests that he's done, what the rules are for the doping agencies, places that they did the testing, and there's a long narrative here, and I think you need to break some of that down and be particular in the citation. So, for instance, what years were those tests conducted? The results were negative. Where is that confirmed? How many total number of tests did he do that came up negative? You want a citation on all of those points. You're kind of rushing through all that information, which I understand in a short piece of information, in a short presentation, you're sometimes trying to consolidate information, but this is the key issue that he is using to defend himself, is the success with which he has passed all of those particular tests. On the argument about the opinion or the testimony that there's no direct information, it's all just hearsay or testimony evidence against him, you cite two people who have testified against him, whose authority is questioned, and you give some reason why their point of view might not be valid, and then all the teammates who have made accusations against him, you've also presented a reason why they may have had a reason for testifying the way they did, because they in fact had violated the rules and they were trying to mitigate their punishments by throwing Lance under the, well, I won't say under the bus, I'll say under the bike, that kind of thing. So I think that you might want to, for instance, cite that factual data I'm sure is all true and valid, but again, a source citation I think would be useful on that. The historical information about Lance Armstrong's history and development is the same kind of thing. I think you need to tell us where the information came from. Again, I don't think there's much dispute about it, but it would add more credibility. How do you know that he started as a triathlete at that particular age? You say that there hasn't been any dramatic change in his strength or conditioning or his performance ability. Is that your conclusion? Is that somebody else's conclusion? If it's your conclusion, what's it based on? If it's somebody else's conclusion, who is it that you're quoting on that information? I think you need to develop that a little bit more. I thought you had a little bit more reading than you really want to have. But your voice expresses the ideas pretty effectively, and I thought that you had a good summary of the argument. All right, thank you.